The Sidemen themselves, they have so much stuff going on. We sometimes joke, actual Sidemen is a side job for them. After that thumbnail change, the video got 2.5x the views in those 28 days, and there were like over 200 comments on each of those versions. And that was just from me, and then other people have comments as well.
I always see you interviewing people for the Sidemen. What would you recommend people who want to work with their dream channel?
It's a question, like for me, one of the keys was...
Today we're joined by the director of the Sidemen with over 20 million subscribers. He's one of the world's leading YouTube strategists, my first ever hire at 1 of 10, and has contributed to videos totaling more than 1 billion views. Guys, welcome Tim Haubal.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Vex. Thanks for having me. This is my first ever podcast I'm going on, so this will be quite an exciting or nerve-wracking experience. We'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I'm excited to talk YouTube.
So in 30 seconds, what's the one piece of advice you could give to an aspiring YouTuber out there?
That's a good question. I think it's important to have a balance between ambition and patience. I see it, with YouTubers that just start. I see it even with big YouTubers. If you want to rush the process, oftentimes you can get quick results, but then they're not super sustainable. If you want to build something big long term, I think it's always best to be patient and kind of build the right way instead of just chasing those quick wins and clickbaity titles or whatever. And obviously there's a lot more to all of that, but on a top level, I think that's quite important and something I talk a lot about to people.
And I'm sure a lot of people are curious. What's your story about how you ended up working with the Sidemen? Like, I remember back in the days, you would say like a dream channel to work with was actually the Sidemen, and then you end up working with them.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on how far back you want to go. Obviously, I have maybe, I don't know if it's actually that different of a story, because a lot of the people that we, now know working with some of the biggest YouTubers in the world have a similar story. But I just did normal university, like a bachelor's master's degree, and in the end of my master's degree, which was for industrial engineering and management, I kind of realized, all the internships and stuff I've done just never gave me all that I was looking for. There was always an itch that was kind of left unscratched. And I'd been flirting with the idea of doing something with YouTube for, 10 years, just studying YouTube on my own, trying to understand how it works, how everything behind YouTube works. And I then originally hit up Paddy Galloway because he was looking for someone to help him out with data stuff on Twitter in early 2021. Ended up helping him out doing some data analyses for the channels he was working with at the time, which was super exciting. It was people like Jesser or Jordan Matter. Some big channels. So that was super cool for me to get access to that data. And then obviously we met in 2022. Started working together, and I'd been a big fan of the Sidemen for over 12 years-ish now, since before they were the Sidemen, because I lived in the UK for a couple of years at that point. And so I would always look forward to, when you asked me, as you said, what's my dream in YouTube, I would say if I can do something with them at some point. But then the actual story is kind of pretty simple. I reached out to Victor, my boss, or the head of content at Sidemen, after the charity match 2022. Reached out to him on LinkedIn. They were looking for new thumbnail designers, editors, all that kind of stuff. I told him, hey, I don't do any of the stuff that you're looking for, but this is what I do. I'm good at analytics. I've worked with a couple different channels. Let me know if you want to chat. And to my surprise, he did. We ended up chatting. I ended up starting as a retention specialist, sort of quality control role for 3 months.
What was the interview process?
Back then it was super short. We just had a call, kind of talked, or get to know each other, and then spoke about what they're looking for, what do I think I could offer them specifically, and then had another 30-minute call, just talking how that would look in practice. Kind of talked about what payment would be, and then that was it pretty much. As I said, it's seems way more
Well,
straightforward
it shows
than you would think, which was exactly my impression at the time as well. I was super surprised. But yeah, they seemed to like what I did. I think, yeah, what helped, was kind of having worked with a couple different channels with you, kind of having worked a little bit with Paddy before. That gave me like an initial credibility, if Paddy trusts me to look at data stuff for his channels, obviously his name was already big at the time, then I must know something, or I must not be total crap. And got my foot in the door that way, I guess. Helped them out with retention for a couple of months. They liked what I did, and then they asked me after that initial 3-month probation period if I wanted to join in the bigger role and become channel manager for the main channel. And that's kind of what I've been doing for about 1.5 years now, and kind of steadily expanding responsibilities and increasing the team size. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Wild ride.
Now I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what does the director of Sidemen actually do? Like, what does your week look like to optimize the whole content of Sidemen for like ideas, title, thumbnails, editing? What does it look like? Yeah,
that's a really good question. I mean, it kind of changes week to week, obviously, depending on what kind of videos we've got going on. And also to caveat, at the moment, the boys, and when I'm talking about the boys, I'm talking about the 7 Sidemen. They do ideation mainly, and then also pre-production they do together with our pre-production crew. My job is then, once the video is shot, I manage the post-production process. So I manage our team. That's currently 4 editors. We have 3 VFX editors. We have an audio guy. We have our thumbnail designer. And then sometimes we get, for specific graphics, the arcade media is synonymous to Sidemen essentially. But those are the people that do all the posters, that do all the assets for the different Sidemen brands. We sometimes get some help from them. And then I work with our thumbnail designer, with Thijs, to work out the thumbnails. Usually that's the thing that I have most input in currently in pre-production. We'll look at, okay, what is the video that we want to do? The boys might have a couple thumbnails ideas already, but then also I dive in, I look through YouTube, I look through our own channel. I look at the topic on 1 of 10, use the thumbnail search feature. I've actually just been doing that today, which is pretty cool now that you can kind of click through the different thumbnails. And just try to find inspiration, from all sorts of different areas. Then go into sketching out, and that's like really terribly drawn sort of stick figure sketches on my end on my on my iPad. Send those with like some examples to Thijs, and then we start building from there. We often use different AI features at that point just to kind of get a rough composition, and then we dive in with the proper images that we get. But we try to send the boys and photographers on the shoot and give them already specific instructions of like what kind of poses, expressions we look for. Yes, so as I said, just caveat that. And I think, we post Sunday nights, so the weekend is usually quite busy for me. Anyone who does project management knows, like, essentially the time you give a project will always be filled by it. So, we'll often do a final check on Sundays and then upload. And then usually my Monday is pretty chill because I'm just taking some time to recover from the weekend. And that's not from drinking, but just from, working. Because after the video goes live, I sit there, I monitor, I'm like, okay, do we do thumbnail changes? I'm sure we're going to talk about that kind of stuff later. And then usually on a Tuesday, Wednesday, we will get through a first draft of the upcoming video, or the video that's like 2 weeks down. And then at that stage, I review that. We give it to some other people in the team that are not as closely involved in the project, just to review it and give some of their feedback. And then whichever one of the Sidemen kind of heads up the video, they will give their feedback. And then we kind of go iteratively from there. I usually kind of talk to the Sidemen already before I see the first video draft, and after just talking to the editors when they kind of source through the footage, because obviously our videos aren't scripted, which means oftentimes we are building the story in the edit. And that then also means, okay, we get the footage back and realize, okay, we need these kind of graphics. That would be helpful to drive the story forward. We, I don't know, need an inventory graphic here. We need like sort of a task completed graphic for this specific stuff. And so I kind of note all of those things down. Then when I get the first draft, I kind of make that a little bit more precise. And then I get the graphics guys working on that. At the same time, I'm always working on thumbnails. And then obviously a lot of my job as well is to, talk to, do we need a licked song in this video? Do we like need something different from Epidemic? Is there any partnerships in this video? Do we have any integrations of our own brand? So all these kind of things all go through me, and it's just a lot of communication. And so that's kind of the process for the video for that week. But then at the same time, I go back, I try to do thumbnail tests on the back catalog. I analyze, I look at our analytics, just kind of, okay, which videos have kind of fallen off? Do we try a new thumbnail test there? And then I, usually in the beginning of the week also ideate a little bit for what could we do for the upcoming videos. We usually work in like a 8-week cycle. And so I just try to work ahead on those.
When you say 8-week cycle, what do you mean by that?
So we kind of like every 6 to 8 weeks, the boys and like the ideation or pre-production team sit down and we like lock in, okay, what are the next few videos going to be?
Oh, wow. So in advance, 8 videos in advance?
It depends roughly, but we kind of know which videos we want to do oftentimes, but obviously, the Sidemen themselves, they have so much stuff going on. We sometimes joke, actual Sidemen is a side job for them, which isn't quite true, but kind of, I think, gives you the gist of things. And so there's a lot of planning that goes in to actually get all 7 of them to be able to, do all the shoots. And so that's just impossible to do like 3 to 6 months in advance. And so we usually like properly schedule the next 6 to 8 videos, and then we know like exactly, okay, we have these 10 upcoming videos, but like what's the video 1 going to be? What's the 5th video going to be? And as soon as I know that, I know how to prioritize. I go into, planning which one of our editors will head up a project because they have different strengths, different areas that are just most creative in. I think that's a little bit of my job on the side as well. Yes, I do some creative work, in giving feedback on the video, giving overall direction of the look of the video, of the storylines, working with our main editor on each project very closely. Same with the thumbnails, but also a lot of my work is just kind of managing and making sure that our creative team don't need to worry about anything else, but just being creative. Like essentially, if I manage to do that, they're going to do their best work, which is going to get us the best result.
So yeah, what's your process about optimizing thumbnails once you upload? You do a bunch of split testing. What do you guys do?
Yeah, happy to answer that. I think, we got access to YouTube's A/B testing like sometime October, November last year. And usually we always try, depending on the video, to do at least 2 or 3 completely different thumbnail concepts, and then variations of each thumbnail concept. And now that we have access, unless we're like all convinced, our the designer, me, and then all the boys were like, okay, we really think this is the best thumbnail concept, we'll just go live with that. But usually we go live with an A/B test or an ABC test already. And then with our views or our view velocity, it only takes an hour to get the results. So I think the minimum time YouTube takes to give you results on the ABC test is 1 hour. But if you get a lot of views, like it's usually never longer than that. And then we go, we know, okay, which of the 2 or 3 concepts is the one that gets the most clicks. And then we test the variations of it. And actually one caveat, which someone commented on Twitter recently when they said, I uploaded 3 entirely different concepts and they all got like 33% of the watch time share percentage. And they're like, okay, so why is that? I think it's quite interesting to think about, initially the video will get impressions from your most loyal viewers, right? So from your returning viewers, most of them will probably be subscribers, but I don't really like talking about subscribers because technically subscribers don't have any impact here. It's mainly just have they previously engaged with a lot of your videos. So they will be seeing that video first. And for them, it probably doesn't matter that much what the thumbnail is, as long as it gets the concept across clearly and the viewer is interested in the concept. And then because they know your channel and they know, okay, it's going to be a good video, they click. And so we often see that, in the first test that we run, we might get a difference of like 32 versus 33 versus 34%. Or oftentimes it's even less than that. Or it's like 49.8 to 50.2% if we only do 2 tests. But if we then test, a couple, maybe the next day or maybe, a week later, a lot of our core audience has already seen the video. But, viewers that aren't quite as familiar, they will not have seen the video. And then if we test the thumbnail again, we might get a totally different result because it's like I'll say a colder audience. And so for this video, it was actually quite interesting because we started it off with a classic Sidemen split. And then we had made this concept that you see here for the road trip before, and I actually preferred it, but we didn't have any data on it. And when we launched that video, we didn't have A/B testing yet. But then, a couple months later, we got A/B testing, and I convinced the boys to let me test it. And then you can kind of see we had another concept as well, which was like the big car chasing the little car. And this here was the original thumbnail. And you can see, in a 3-way test, this one got 14% higher watch time share percentage than this one, which is like a pretty big difference. I don't usually, especially in a 3-way test. And so we knew, okay, this should be cool. And then obviously after that,
look who was right. 40% versus oh shit.
Yeah,
and 40% versus 25%. Damn.
Yeah, that's a big difference. And then from that, we had a couple different variations, as I said, of this concept. And I went in and tested, does the yellow or golden car perform better than the silver car? And here it was only a smaller difference, which is as you would expect. But yeah, nonetheless, we changed the thumbnail, and I can't share the screenshot due to revenue reasons and some other stuff. But essentially, after that thumbnail change, the video got, I think, about 2.5x the views in those 28 days than the 28 days before the thumbnail change, even though we're further and further away from when the video was released. And yeah, that's something that's super convenient, obviously, now with the A/B test tool. And I think it makes sense to just go back whenever you have the chance, especially if you have already got different thumbnail concepts, just test and then test them again a week later, test them again a month later, because the results may always be different. And I wish at some point YouTube will give us a feature where you just upload 3 thumbnails and it's like a continuous test, and they just use, like, you never have to they never stop the test. But instead, as some, I don't know, Netflix or other services do, one thumbnail is maybe better for this kind of subgroup of your viewers, and those will get that thumbnail. So this is another example. It was a hide and seek in a zoo video, and obviously we had like 3 pretty similar concepts, and there's still like a decent difference, probably because JJ's face is a little bit bigger here and he looks a little bit more scared. That video won out. But then we also always make these sort of movie poster style posters for socials and then also for Site Plus. And this was actually a concept that I had also given our thumbnail designers, but we just couldn't make it work with the assets that we had properly. But our poster designer made this thumbnail, which obviously doesn't look super YouTube meta. But after we got access to A/B testing, half a year after the video was uploaded, we just said, okay, let's try this out. And as you can see, it's also a pretty significant result of almost 58% to 42%. And views also went up afterwards a fair bit. And I think that's the beauty of it. You can use old videos just to test different hypotheses. Obviously, for a channel like us, where we have the capacity to create a lot of different thumbnails, that's pretty valuable. I understand that for smaller thumbnails, smaller channels, or if you don't have a team, it might not be possible, and you kind of have to pick some higher hanging fruits. lower hanging fruit. Sorry, but yeah, I thought that's a pretty cool example of something where we didn't really expect that kind of result, but that just kind of shows you the data is sometimes better, than your intuition.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to ask based on kind of the results as someone who A/B tests like pretty prolifically is when it comes to A/B testing, if you have like a set kind of standard operating procedure, because for my I guess looking like outwardly inward is that you guys tend to go back through your back catalog and A/B test, which I think is smart. But what about like the process of uploading a video? Because I know when I A/B test, I upload a video and I use an external service that will test sequentially, so it'll be like thumbnail 1, thumbnail 2, thumbnail 3, etc., which has its own like issues where on YouTube it tests it in parallel, which is quite nice. So you can get like more immediate results. But I wanted to know, what your exact kind of process was. If it is, let's test 3 completely unique thumbnails, or maybe like 6 or maybe 9 completely unique thumbnails, and then like the top performing ones, we'll test those against each other, and then from there, if you iterate, or in some cases, is there any reason to even A/B test? For example, obviously you can talk about view velocity, and if you have a video that's 1 out of 10, it might not make a lot of sense to A/B test on that video because it's already doing so well, and you don't want to necessarily degrade performance. So, is that a case of just iterating off the current thumbnail? Like, what does that look like from kind of a broad spectrum of like older videos to new videos? And what do you find to be working the best at the moment? Because hopefully when this podcast goes up, everyone will have A/B testing. So having a very like kind of succinct formula to how you test would make a lot of sense and probably be pretty useful.
Yeah. I think it is pretty simple in a sense. Like, as I said, we usually, depending on, we all, have experience with YouTube. So we have some sort of intuition. By us all, I mean, of course, you guys as well, but also just on our team. And then we, as I said, decide, hey, do we want to go with one specific thumbnail? Or now that we have A/B test, there's usually not really a reason to not just test 2 or 3 thumbnails right from the get-go. And in that case, we do test like 3 different concepts normally. We don't always have 3 different concepts, because for thumb videos, we just know from experience that there's this one concept that's the strongest and we only have variations of it. But then we go in, we test 3 different sort of, think of an A, B, C. We test those first, we get a winner from that. And then we test sort of B1, say B is the winner, we test B1 versus B2 versus B3. Something that I have been thinking about, but because I don't really know enough about how YouTube's, like, they don't give us a lot of data, right? So a thumbnail or a thumbnail might be performing better according to the test, but you don't know if it's because it's got higher CTR, or is it because people that click on that thumbnail watch for longer. We don't really know which of the parameters leads to that thumbnail performing better. And yeah, we usually don't have like that many different thumbnails, just because ours are supposed to look IRL. It's quite a long process to even get them done. And I also don't believe in many of our cases that, a simple, we don't usually have that much text, or like text you can experiment with. Like, that's something that's super easy to experiment with, and which you can just almost run infinite tests on. But I think, yeah, we go in 3 different concepts. If we have more, obviously you can then test the winning concept versus 2 other concepts, or versus 1 other concept. Or you can, even if the results are pretty close, you can just retest and then do 1 versus 1 test instead of 1 versus 1 versus 1. And then you go in and iterate. And we also generally have a pretty good feeling beforehand on where we think the video will land in our rankings. So, if a video is a 1 of 10, then I will usually not necessarily touch the thumbnail, especially if we've run a test in the beginning. I'll not touch it again, at least for 1 of 2 days. And then if it maybe slows down a bit, I go back. But that's mainly just based off of how it's doing in terms of views. And then, sometimes we have videos where we think we have 2-3 different thumbnails. The video really underperforms to our expectations, and we might go in and try like a completely new concept a couple of days in. But yeah, we're also usually in our team like so focused on the next thing already that it's just me testing different stuff with backend, which is why we're currently hiring, for another thumbnail position to kind of get rid of that bottleneck.
So we've talked a lot about thumbnails here. I was curious about the video aspect of it, because the videos are 1 hour long. How do you go through it? Like, how many times do you rewatch a whole video? How many like frame notes do you put in? How long does it take from for post production? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long time. You say our videos are 1 hour. I think our average this year is probably more like 90 minutes plus. We've uploaded a video in March which was over 3 hours long. And yeah, it usually, like on a video that's that long, especially if it's a video that needs a lot of graphics, where I also do timestamp everything for our graphics team, it can take me an entire day to like go through a video once. The one good thing, I guess, is obviously if you're coming into video and you're like, okay, I'm sitting down to watch 90 minutes of that, you don't care an hour in like as much anymore of how high pace and how perfect the video is compared to if you're sitting down to watch like a 12-minute video. And so what we tend to do is focus on having higher pace and having like interesting setups and payoffs and kind of the intricacies of the structure and the flow of the video. We focus on that mainly for the first like 10 to 15 minutes, because that's where people are still in the process of like, hey, do I stay or do I go? Obviously the first like 2 to 3 minutes or even first 1 minute are way more important still. But I can see on our retention curves that after a certain part, the people that want to watch, they're locked in. And then you don't mind if there's at hour 1, like, or minute 69, that there's a slower minute or so. And obviously we try to optimize as much as we can, but as you said, with those long videos, we kind of really have to pick and choose our battles. But yeah, I think the most frame notes we've ever done, I'm trying to think which video it is, because I know we had like 3 different versions and there were like over 200 comments on each of those versions. And that was just from me, and then other people left comments as well. So there's some videos where it gets a little bit crazy and it's like really hard to keep track of, because obviously, when then we have different VFX editors and they make all their edits, then that has to come in. Our audio guy who does the mix, that has to come in. It's a lot on the person that does the final edit to actually make sure they're all in the right place and nothing is missed. And then, I have to go back through again on the final export and make sure, we didn't miss anything. We didn't like accidentally duplicate anything, because obviously if you have like a 90-minute video and you're adding like 200 different animations to it, that can like easily happen. So yeah, I usually, if I have the time, which I usually do, but I go through first and watch it on 1.5x speed, just try to get a general feel for the video, be like, hey, just note down like these scenes, these sections, they feel a little bit long. Then I go back into it and like try to figure that out in like a more precise fashion for our editor to cut down. But then obviously once you have music, that often transforms a scene. So then you need to go back in and see like, hey, did this work how we imagined? Or like, hey, do we need sound design to come in here and like add more tension to this section? Yeah, it's tough to say, but it is definitely a bit of a different process than to review like a 10 to 15 minute video, that's for sure.
Yeah. Like, how long does it take from the moment they film for, let's say, a final draft of the edit?
You mean like the final version that's ready to export? That's ready to be like published?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. Like I'd say we average probably, we have a, I don't know, like 10-day turnaround. I think the least we had was we had a video that was shot on a Wednesday and then had to go out on a Sunday, which is obviously quite crazy. And then on some we have like up to 3 weeks. But yeah, it always depends like how big the video is as well.
So yeah, these hour-long video, I feel, attracts a lot your core audience. But how do you, at 20 million subs, attract an audience that's like new, that have never heard of you, and trying to grow at this point from 20 million to 50 million subs, let's say? What's the plan for that? What's the strategy behind it?
Yeah, that's something that we're actually talking a lot about internally right now, because if we look back at the last year, we had a couple of events or like videos that drove the absolute majority of the subscribers. One of it was the 20 versus 1 with Kai Cenat. One of it was the 20 versus 1 with Speed, and then one of them was the charity match. Those videos, drove subscribers like crazy, and I think that is definitely key part of the strategy for us at this scale now. I think the Sidemen are a bit special in the way that the humor is very dependent on the personality. It's very UK centric. It depends like how funny you find it is. Do you understand the dynamics between the different members of the group? It's almost like if you were to start watching a new sitcom, like if you watch season 1 of The Office, you're not gonna be like super excited about it. You're gonna be like, what the fuck's going on here? And I view our content a little bit the same way. Like, you have to find these different points where new people are going to watch it, like a Kai video, and that means they are most likely going to be served our next video. So the key is to find videos that can pull people in, and then have good follow-up videos, because if they watch another of your videos, they maybe slowly start to understand that humor, and they understand what it is about, and they get a little bit more acquainted with the personalities. And then something I touched on earlier is, I think for us to make sure that our videos also like have both a concept that's interesting even if it's not the boys, but then also that authentic and kind of trademark Sidemen feel. And so the way I think we can balance that, and we're gonna experiment a little bit more with, is really focusing on making those first 10-15 minutes like enjoyable for anyone, even if you don't know the boys. Like, not rely as much on their humor between themselves, for example. And then as the video goes on, we kind of let that flow a little bit more naturally. But we'll see. Like, maybe we'll do another podcast at some point, and then I can give you a better answer on that. But it's definitely a very unique challenge in our position, because I think, as I said, the UK has a limited audience. Obviously, we are English speaking, but we see it from tests with the Spanish audience, for example. The UK humor is hard to translate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting when talking about like the broad strategy of a channel. One thing that also might be a little bit interesting, a little bit more succinct, is going to be, what are your thoughts on CTR, AVD, and if you could explain for beginners just kind of what the best stats are for YouTube, and why the kind of the new motto is views are king, is the kind of the kingmaker stat now, rather than CTR times AVD or watch time or whatever it may be. It's now just views. If you could maybe explain that for kind of everyone, because it is a little bit of an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little bit of an argument at some point last year between different people on Twitter as well. I think essentially the opinion that views is king has always been the case, because there's always been videos where they have a load of views, but if you look at the stats, you can't really explain them. I think Paddy brought up an interesting example at his presentation at VidSummit last year, but oftentimes, the video stats will go down the further, or like the broader the impressions go. So if you look at a video with 10 million views, it'll most likely have worse stats than another video with like 500k views. And you think like that doesn't make sense. And I think that's an issue with, if you just look at CTR and AVD and don't take it in the context of impressions of views. I think CTR is one of the most context dependent variables there is. And so if you compare even on your own channel between two of your own videos to CTR, you have to, like, you can't even compare it by, my CTR on day 3 on this video versus the other video. You have to go in and you would have to look at CTR by number of impressions. And that's unfortunately something that's like quite hard to get. You can obviously, if you scrape the data yourself from those different graphs, that's a little bit more easy to do. But for most people, they don't have that. They just look at a YouTube studio, and then you would have to go manually in and be like, okay, I'm looking at, at hour 1, I had, 3,000 impressions and my CTR was 13%. And then you have to do that same thing for another video. You have to find out, okay, at what time did I have 3k impressions and what was the CTR? And like, then you can maybe slightly compare CTR between videos, but then comparing CTR between different channels or even different niches is just a whole other ballgame, which just doesn't make sense. There's just so much that goes into that. which we don't know, or you don't know when you look at it, that it's really tough to do. And so even with thumbnail changes, like before I had, or on channels where I don't have A/B test yet, it is easiest to just look at, your minute by minute views when you change the thumbnail and see, hey, do they go up or do they go down? Or do they stay the same? That's like a decent indication for what actually happens. It's much better of an indicator whether to stick with that thumbnail or not, than just looking at CTR. But if you see like, okay, my impressions are going up and my CTR is going up, that's another good sign in that context. Like from looking at a lot of different YouTube studios and different people's data, you can also see that in different niches, there is different, like entirely different CTRs. In gaming, usually most channels have pretty high CTRs, which just kind of means I interpret it as the way that there is a lot of supply and there's a lot of competition. So, you need high CTRs in your videos, or it just means that your videos aren't going to be served to as many people because there's so many other videos on the same topic, and those impressions have to be shared between those people. Whereas in other niches, I know that most of the people get like a 5% CTR, whereas in gaming, like a lot of them might get 15%. I think that alone should show you that it's super hard to compare, and especially if you're not super into the weeds of it and don't know how to look at CTR or other stats at the same number of impressions. It gets way too confusing, especially for beginners, and even for me. Like I go in, and I'm by no means the best person at YouTube Studio, but I look at stuff and I'm like, okay, that just doesn't make sense to me on the surface level. Then if you look at views, there's not much you can argue there. It's like it's just that it's the king metric.
So we've worked together for 2 years, working with the biggest YouTubers in the world, from millions to tens of millions of subs. What would you say are your top 3 tips you could give a YouTuber to improve their ideation specifically?
No, I think that's a great question, because as we know from working with so many people, the idea is the biggest lever. I don't know, but you have the most leverage on your views by the idea that you choose, because you can choose, you can have the best thumbnail if the idea that it kind of is based on, or the concept isn't interesting, and people are not going to click. And so I think our big advantage is, as strategists, like we work with different channels and we are able to go in and just like look at so many different niches, so many different channels, and see what works, that it just kind of melts all in our brain, and we're like, okay, this like is a concept that we see, that underlying concept is something we see work on a load of different channels. So it's definitely just getting a lot of inspiration, like looking at what other YouTubers in your niche do, what performs well on other channels outside your niche, just on YouTube in general, I think is something super valuable. And one way I do that, and we've been doing it, is why we built 1 of 10 was literally based on our process, on the way we used to ideate. We're like, okay, this works really well, but it takes a lot of time. How can we make it more simple? And obviously we started building 1 of 10 and use it a lot now. And for everyone watching, I know the tool itself has a certain price, because it's super valuable. Like a single idea can give a channel like a video that makes them, I don't know, $50,000. But even the free Chrome extension, I use a lot, because I used to always use Safari, but then because of the 1 of 10 Chrome extension, I eventually switched over to using Chrome only, because that's the only place I can use the extension.
Let's go. Love to hear that.
And fun. It just makes the process of finding these outlier videos when you go through channels a lot faster. So yeah, that's like one thing, just kind of really broadening your inspiration. Second thing is to build yourself a database, like be it on 1 of 10 using the features of bookmarking and making folders of different videos that inspire you, or just making a list, making a Google sheet of your own, and collecting them, and then like going through finding patterns in which kind of videos perform well. And then the second step is to actually go deeper and really understand, okay, why did this video perform well? Because there are videos where it's just the idea. There are videos where it's a really intriguing thumbnail title combo. There are videos where it's just like an insane thumbnail. That's maybe the main selling point. And then there are other videos where the video itself is like that good that people will kind of just share a lot. Like people will love it, engage with it. And the YouTube algorithm does measure all those kind of soft metrics, I guess. And that can also sometimes lead to a video getting pushed, but like getting a lot of views. So understanding which parts of the video that is. Then I think something that we as strategists sometimes almost overlook is it's still always valuable to just like go with your own crazy ideas. Like I often get ideas when I'm in the shower or like when I'm about to fall asleep or when I'm going on a walk. And it's just kind of noting those down, like making a quick voice note or something can be super valuable if you then look back into it. Or, you know, just if you're watching anime or something. I know I'm not doing that a lot, but I know a lot of you two do and a lot of our friends do. And that's often like a good inspiration for especially like a what if video. And so understanding why those videos work and then going in and combining different aspects of those. Because like you don't just want to copy what's worked. You want to kind of put your own unique twist on it. And you can do that if you understand which or why another video worked. And then you can replicate sort of the underlying concept, but you can do it with your own idea and with your own style. Because if you just blindly copy something, that's not what, you know, makes you understand and makes you better YouTuber, even if it might perform well initially. But that goes kind of back to the thing which I said in the beginning with ambition and patience, is have the ambition, like have the patience to dig into stuff and understand why it works, understand the underlying concepts, you know, of good storytelling, of what makes a good thumbnail. And that can always depend on which niche you're in, which type of video you're doing. You know, there's people that do very raw videos, and there's people who do very highly produced videos, and that can both work in the same niche as well. But it kind of depends on what your audience is and who you're trying to aim at. I think that's maybe my last point on ideation. You have to know what audience you're trying to make videos for. And you can be a Mr. Beast and just try to make a video that's appealing to the most amount of people possible, but that's usually not very feasible, especially if you're a small creator or if you're just in another niche. But really understanding the psychology of the viewer, of the people you're targeting, can help you a lot in ideation, but then also in knowing how to angle your title and thumbnail.
That's going to be very useful. Guys, don't forget, ideation is key, but also always get inspired and work on it day by day. I always see you interviewing people for the Sidemen. So I was wondering, what would you recommend people who want to work with their dream channel?
Yeah, it's a question. Like for me, one of the keys was I just DM people on LinkedIn because they don't get as many DMs there. They're more likely to respond. But I think that was, a couple of years ago. It's probably not quite true anymore now. But overall, what I found, even to just network with other people in the space, because I didn't know anyone who did YouTube at all. Like I was just sitting at home. I had 30 followers on Twitter. I never used it. But Twitter is super, super useful to connect with other people. And that, you know me, guys, I have massive gripes with some of the people on Twitter that just try to farm engagement and to, get some quick followers, where I'm of the opinion that even there, patience is key. So what I used to do is I just started engaging with people that I enjoyed what they were doing on Twitter. I, actually typed out thoughtful replies to whatever they were posting. I engaged in conversations with them in their comments. Yeah, exactly. And then once you have a base already and you've already talked about a couple of things, I then might shoot them a DM and be like, hey, super interesting talking about that. What do you think about this? Do you want to maybe hop on a call sometime and just talk about YouTube? like that's one step, just get in contact with other people in the space, especially if you're just trying to get into it and you don't know anyone. And the thing is with YouTube, like as soon as you know a couple of people, they will know a bunch of other people, and people are usually very happy to help you connect to someone if they think you can offer them something, or like it's just a valuable conversation that could be had. And then if you're applying for jobs, I mean, it helps to build a network and build a personal brand, which you kind of do the way, at least for me, is the way I just said now. Then depending on what you do, like thumbnails, it's very easy to share your results. I think TKG recently posted on Twitter, like he's so happy he's a thumbnail designer because he can just post his thumbnails and that will already, get people to engage and understand what he does. But if you do something else, I think the most valuable part is connect with other people that do the same on Twitter. And there is still a very much, I think, way more demand for good people that help YouTubers than there is supply. Like you might go on Twitter and think, oh, there's so many people that do this, but believe me, like behind the scenes, so many people are looking for good people, reliable people, and people that just have a good vibe. And if you can be that, the sooner or later, if you connect to people, like you'll get offers, or like one of your friends that you make will get like, hey, I'm looking for a scriptwriter. Do you know anyone? And then they would be like, yeah, I know this person, thinks pretty good, give him a shot. And then you can either that, or you do your own proof of concept, start your own channel. But generally, what I would definitely advise you against is just sending out 200 cold DMs a day that are, copy paste. There's nothing worse than getting those. Like, and even if I see that in my DMs, first of all, I'm not going to answer. And second of all, if you then send me another one, like a proper one later, I already have a bad impression of you. So provide value, just like be very genuine, and people can tell if you're just trying to get something or like scheme them into something. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because like obviously we have a lot of people hitting me up all the time, but like the hiring process I'm going through now for a junior thumbnail designer is the first time like I've put out proper job posting, but I'm in the middle of sorting that out.
How many did you get?
I think we got about 35 applications where I thought they're really good. I've not checked the full amount that we got, but yeah, that'll be interesting experience.
So this is a question we ask to everyone. If there was one channel you'd invest in, which one would it be? And what I mean by that is, which one do you think will blow up, is still undervalued?
That's a really good question. I think, first of all, it like depends on if we're saying like views or subs. You guys know my view on like what subs mean nowadays, now that you can get like 10 million subscribers from one single short. Like we've seen with Mark Rober or Stokes Twins or Panda Boy. And just, sorry for the quick side note, but something that really interests me there, I think personally that all of those subscribers are super young that you actually get from shorts, because I don't know, I just can't imagine, like someone in their 20s being like watching one of the shorts being, oh, I have to subscribe. And this answer from me is probably like a little bit of a cop-out. It would have been better if you asked me that a year ago, because I would have told you like I'd invest in Life of Riza or Cariza. And if you go through her channel, there's actually on like a video from, I don't know, a year ago. So I commented because she like filmed the video when she was at like a little over 10K subs. And then when she posted the video, she was already over 100K. I kind of commented like, it's amazing to see just how well you're doing and how quickly you're growing with just sharing your own generally authentic message and just like bringing some new fresh ideas and style to YouTube. And I think she's now at over 600K. I'm like sure she's going to continue growing a lot. And that's also the kind of content that I personally really enjoy. So that would be cool to see, hopefully.
And also another question we ask everyone is, what is your dream? You're working for one of the biggest channels in the world. You're the director, managing a team. What's your dream?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. You asked me that, when we first met almost years ago, and I kind of told you, at least in the YouTube space, my dream is exactly where I'm at right now. And
indeed, you're living your dream.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about how. I think it was even like I started working with them like 3 or 4 months after you initially asked me that question, and at that point I'd never believed that it would happen ever, or even that quickly. But like I'm someone, I always used to overthink everything and then just like kind of not do. Which when I said, okay, I want to do something in YouTube space, I said like I'm not going to have big plans or big targets or objectives that I want to achieve. I'm just going to try it out, see how I like it, and do my best. And I've kind of gone pretty far with that. And now I'm at a point where there's definitely scope to think about, okay, what's next. But at the end of the day, I think as cliche as it sounds, I just want to have fun with what I'm doing. I want to whenever it gets to it, like have time for my family and just like live a healthy life, to just the things I like. I like to be outdoors a lot. So at some point, maybe I'm able to do something in YouTube space that also allows me to be outside a little bit more than I am right now. But yeah, it's pretty simple dreams, I'd say.
Fair. I also know you like to travel in your van and go in the woods and nature. So this allows it, I think. Maybe
who knows? Maybe I'll be like an Outdoor Boys 2.0 at some point in my life, but I doubt it.
Wouldn't be surprised.
That's not bad. That'd be cool.
Sweet.
It would be fun, yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Is there any last word, tips you want to tell everyone before leaving?
I'm just kind of glad I actually made it through it halfway decent. Like I've been a little bit more nervous, I guess, than I thought. No, but this has been so much fun. As you guys know, I love talking YouTube. And as I said, I think it's just being patient, like not being discouraged by results, but always being analytical and like being self-critical, because that's the best thing we can do with data. You can get better understanding and develop better intuition, and then you just iterate and get a little bit better every day with every upload. And at some point, if it's something that you're really passionate about, I'm sure you'll achieve great things.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Tim. I'm sure a lot of people will learn from this. Even just one tip, I'm sure is going to help blow up a channel out there. So thanks, and we'll see each other soon.
Yeah,
have a good
thank
one.
You guys.
And watch the next video.
Yeah, watch it and subscribe. This channel is going to do big things for anyone who wants to learn about YouTube.
We're trying with the retention stuff.